Hey, my name is Neal. Welcome to Virtual Natural Balance Masterclass. This is a virtual masterclass, and here we are. Here I am. Where am I? I'm here grounded. I'm present. Now, Neal's my name, but Neal's not who I am. Who I am is a multi-dimensional, infinite spiritual being that's expressing through a human body. And in Natural Balance Virtual Masterclass, there's an opportunity to tap into this infinite multi-dimensionality, this spirit in the body that is oneness, that is infinite connection, that is the true self, that uh, in a recent conversation today, I called the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit is the fascia, it's the connective tissue, it's the, I could even go as far as to call it the love that is connecting all of the perceived parts. And if there is a constant, I would call that constant God. And uh, God is a distinction. It's like this defining term. And God is the undefinable that I can use the word God to point towards, but there's only so far that the words can have you go. And then there's this thing that's beyond the words that is what I'm actually speaking to and speaking from and speaking as, to the degree that I surrender and to the degree that I open my heart up and actually let that thing that's greater than my perceptions, that's greater than my expectations, that's greater than my truth, that's greater than my opinion, to the degree that I surrender all of that programming to that same degree is how God can use Neal, how God can use this vessel to express, to share, to communicate, to emote, express emotion, to take an action. And I'll pause there. Is is anything coming up? Anything alive? Is there anything um what's in motion? What's being felt?
Well, now that both Cole and I are here, we have double the natural imbalance present. Maybe the two imbalances will balance each other out.
Speak for yourself, bro.
Well, there it's beginning. It's beginning.
And in so you may ask yourself, what is natural balance? Well, natural balance is this inherent gift that's inside of you that isn't the programming. It's literally your God-given purpose here on earth that you can express, you can tap into, that you can share, and you can not share it. You can suppress it. You can stuff it down. You can keep it inside of you and just never have anybody like observe the actual reason God put you here in the first place. And you only exist in language. You actually don't exist. You is a thing that we use to describe something that we perceive as being separate from one. The truth is oneness. The truth is infinite connection. And it's from that truth that I have a commitment inside of my being. And this commitment is listening and speaking from love. And I'm also holding love synonymous with God. And so when I'm listening and speaking from love, that is the grounds that I can operate from, and it gives a foundation that I can stand on. It gives something that I'm rooted on, that I can operate from. And from that space, I can share my gift, which is starting to, in part, be illuminated as being, to a degree, a communicator, which I never fucking saw coming. Um, Literally, like In the past, I've been the shittiest communicator, and that's like Neal talking now.
What what makes communication like why is that important to you?
It isn't. It is communication is not important to me. Communication is important to I am, and I am using communication to express uh and point towards love, to point towards God, to point towards this infinite connection. And communication is important to I am inside of Neal, but it isn't important to Neal. Neal would literally just not communicate because communication is not relevant to Neal, and it isn't relevant to Neal uh because of, well, all right, so let me speak more to this. So there is a degree of relevance of communication. So here's why communication is important to Neal. It is important to Neal because Neal uses communication to control, to manipulate, to uh to have outcomes be a certain way, to dictate. That's what Neal uses communication for. Now, so that's why communication is important to Neal, but communication isn't important to Neal because of the exact things I spoke to. Um, when Neal has communication be important, then he is using communication to do the things that I spoke to. And so communication isn't important to Neal because I have an awareness, which is now that awareness is beyond Neal, but can observe Neal communicating. That awareness, it isn't important to, oh, this is I'm working this out as you ask the question. This is amazing.
This is great.
Because what I'm recognizing is that communication is important to Neal, but it's not in, and 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 it isn't important to Neal
For a good reason.
to be a contribution.
Right.
So, and then it is important to I am in Neal because I am uses the communication through Neal to be contribution. So there's
So
both.
what I'm getting is it's an equal importance, but opposite ends of impact.
Yes.
Okay. I got you.
So there's simultaneously relevance and not relevance in communication. And this and the relevance is like the using the communication the relevance is I am using Neal to communicate, and communication isn't relevant to Neal because when Neal has communication be relevant, he's using it in an egoic way.
Because
Oof.
is Neal itself egoic?
Yes. And here's so do you want to speak more to that? Like you're asking questions. I love this. And I'm
Sure.
curious to um would you love to have me speak more to the egoic nature of Neal?
Um, I feel like I got a pretty good grasp on where you're headed and um like what you're speaking to. But yeah, if you want to define it even more, I mean, I think that'd be good.
Yeah, it'll be like a distinguishment. So it's like initially when I opened this up and I spoke to the opinion, the my truth, the perception, and the my expectation. Those are all ways that Neal, the ego, uses to communicate. So the ego is a identity that is labeled Neal. It has a name, Neal. That's the egoic identity. And then people can relate to that. They can be like, they can say, "Hey, Neal," and the egoic identity is like, "Hey." And it can be a way of connection in the state of perceived separation, which doesn't actually exist, but we use that to operate in the 3D dimension. And and then in addition, the egoic identity that's Neal now has 4 components that it uses to communicate. There's probably more components, but there's definitely these 4. And so Neal would say like, "Hey, my opinion is this," and then Neal would say his opinion, and that's totally egoic. And then Neal would say, hey, this is the second component. Hey, my expectation looking into the future is that this is going to happen. My expectation in the future, and he might not even say in the future, but my expectation is this is going to happen. So egoic, my expectation. Third component, Neal says, my truth is that I eat food because I want to eat food. Egoic. Uh, next one is opinion. So Neal would speak the expression, "My opinion is yada yada yada." So there's these 4 components: expectation, perception, opinion, and my truth, that are packaged as an identity with a label of a name.
So, in your perspective, what would make eating food not egoic?
When I speak from my perspective, I'm speaking from the ego. So, from the ego perspective, it's gonna be what it is. It's not gonna be the truth. It's gonna be a my truth. So, from all right. So now Neal's gonna speak. From my perspective, what has eating food not be egoic is when see, this is what happens when I enter the ego. The flow, it goes from like flow to trying to figure things out, from getting in the brain. And so from my perspective, what has eating food not be egoic is when you've I don't even know if I can speak from my perspective, to be totally transparent, but I'm giving it my best go.
Can you speak from any perspective?
I can communicate from as I am. So
Yes,
when
that'd be great, as I am.
when food is not egoic, the the reason it's not egoic is because the being has given up food. So Neal would give up food and give it up maybe for a time. It might not be forever. Like just like, hey, I'm now putting food on the altar, and we could call that like a food fast, like literally doing like a fast, and then giving up food for a time, transcending the need for food, and actually being okay with this physical body passing, and then creating and generating a connection with God during that time, which already exists. But when Neal still thinks he needs food, it's because of like thinking that God isn't enough, that I need food to because then that'll have it be enough. And so when I don't need food and when Neal doesn't need food, it's because of having given up food and having received what actually nourishes my soul, which is God. And then God might say, "Hey, eat some food." and then I can have food, but I don't need it.
If you honor the origin of where the food came from and the source, and you bless it and eat with grace, and so you recognize that it's a form of energy exchange, and so if you eat for that reason as opposed to just desire because something just tastes a certain way and you like the sensation or you like the, I think that's the distinction maybe between like eating egoically or, you know, um, eating as a spiritual being in
Yes.
recognition of that and how
Yes.
everything is part of just that same uh energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Precisely. And this requires transcending the need for it and remembering that the nourishment is coming from a greater source, and that greater source is in the food, but it isn't the food. It comes through the food, but it's not the food itself. It's the energy coming through it. It's the aliveness in the food.
There we go. I'm glad we got it. Yeah. There it is.
Did we get it?
I think so.
Did we get it? We did?
I believe so,
What
but
did
that's coming from my perspective.
what did we get?
I think we got the essence of my original question. And for me, and it sounds like for both of y'all, that adequately answered my original question.
So what's present for me and I think is relevant to, natural balance is maybe we can speak to on the topic of primal energies, and I see that as being like below the foundation. You were speaking to the foundation, so it's like the base below the foundation, and it's like the instinctual sort of component, the masculine and the feminine. So kind of on that level, and I see it as relevant. And you're speaking about communication and where and how it could be relevant, and that's in the identification of whatever possible imbalances that there may be. So if somebody say is overpendulated in the masculine or in the feminine, or there's other terminology, the dark feminine, the light feminine, negative, positive feminine, whatever it is, and in that is a particular kind of energy which drives the whole being. Like it's on such a deep level that if there's misalignment there and if there isn't balance there, then all the levels above that, you can think of it as chakras or whatever, are also misaligned. So for example, the root chakra, perhaps that can tie in from a different kind of frame. um, so I don't know. Is there anything that comes up for you in that kind of area and how that can be um, brought into alignment or balance?
So natural balance is the true self. It's the innocent, whole, complete part of us that's in us all the time. That is that infinite connection. And that primal thing that you're speaking to, I think is an aspect of the true self, but I don't think it's the full embodiment of the true self. I think it's um part of it. And the true self is oneness, and it's the Holy Spirit. It's this infinite connection. And the the primal thing that you're speaking to, I think, is an aspect, is a component, is a perceived separate piece that is coming from the true self. And the true self is also infinite, therefore it's timeless. And this primal thing, because it's primal, it can be looked at as being from the past. Uh, even though even though time doesn't exist, we're in an infinite space right now. but we can use time to look at events past, present, and future. And I think primal energy can be looked at from a frame of being in the past, and and this primal energy is an energy that affects the egoic identity, that affects also the real self, and has zero impact on the true self.
You're gonna say something,
Yes,
Clint?
I had a question even before this, but I feel like it ties into this conversation as well. Do you think us being all in oneness and infinitely connected as spiritual beings by the Holy Spirit, do you think other beings can communicate from you in totally opposite locations, like in the world? Do you think you can be communicated to you through your own being? Like, do you think beings have that power?
yes.
Yeah, it's kind of like
that-
quantum entanglement, or kind of how, you can be anywhere in the universe and then completely on the other side of the universe, these particles are actually interacting with nothing seemingly.
Well, I'm saying like other beings that do you have the knowledge or power to communicate with others like in that way? Like, do you know how
Currently,
that's
consciously, no.
No.
Well, and I say that, and I currently consciously can send energy, and you could call sending energy a form of communication. Um, so it's relative, and so what I currently consciously have capacity to and as is to send energy, and this could even be considered prayer. Praying for another person is literally a form of communication. And so there is that capacity that's right now present. And and there's also observable effects from implementing this degree of energy exchange, but it isn't communication in the form of how it typically looks like in a conversation, which is where it's like
verbally.
verbal, sitting and just like speaking with words.
So I have thoughts that I hear throughout the day, and is that like what is that? Like is that like would that be called ego?
It could be
What do you
amazing.
think?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's why I was asking you guys because I'm really not sure. It's definitely like it seems to be thoughts, but it seems to be voices other than mine. I don't know if that's normal or not.
So all of these questions you've been asking are loaded for this reason. It's that communication can mean so many different things. There's so many different ways of communicating. And it's not loaded in a bad way. I'm just saying that to actually distinguish what communication is would be like go in so many different directions at once. And then same with thoughts. There's many different kind of thoughts that are a function of different parts of the brain communicating with itself and each other. Or it could be other people that you've known that you've kind of disconnected from, or you feel disconnected from, but whatever part of them that you've interacted with still remain. And
That's what I think it is.
and yeah, yeah. So there's like your inner voice, and then there's something called your outer voice. And outer voice can consist of many different voices, like an array that it's basically, it usually remains when there's unresolved conflict. So when there's something in the unconscious that, you had whatever interaction and there's been collisions, imagine like a collision of particles or neurons firing that were meant to link together, but they didn't. They didn't link together, and that's you end up feeling angry or irritated or whatever it might be, because there's something that didn't connect that was meant to connect in some way and remained unresolved. And so whatever associations that you have might be lost or repressed or suppressed. But that circuit or whatever that matter, whatever the matter was, that was the matter. It's like, what's the matter? Like that matter remains unintegrated and in your unconscious.
Yeah, that's how do I fix that?
Uh, I mean, like everything else, you have to. It's like there's three levels of consciousness. The way that I see it, there's like unconscious awareness, which is like you're aware that something is happening. You have no idea what it is. Then there's cognizance, where you bring the unconscious awareness to your attention, and then once you bring it to your attention, you start to try to identify or emotionally relate to what the hell it is.
Okay.
And so once you identify what the hell it is and the source of it, you get to the root or the source of it, you then process it, and you can then identify, okay, this is inside of me, this is outside of me, this was past, this is something that was projected into the future. Like you basically align it in space and time. Like, you know, spatially kind of where it is on the inside and the outside, you know when it took place, and you bring it to the present, because by bringing it to your attention, you incorporate it and you make it a part of yourself, and then it gets transformed into like your inner voice. So it's like your true self. Your true self is able to then see what aspect of yourself was perhaps disconnected from in that moment in time or with that person, that it's like reclaiming it, taking ownership back of whatever that is.
Basically taking responsibility for it.
Yeah.
And like seeing that you created it in a way.
Yes. And
it
that
wasn't what the other person said, basically, is what you're saying.
Yes, but that's like the end point, because first you have to like identify what it even is, like in the first place, like where it belongs. So that's like when a part of us or an aspect of ourselves gets displaced. That's what's called, like displacement. Like the place in space and time, the place, it's not present to the present of the present. And so that part got displaced, and you have to find its origin and bring it back into place. And then you can, when you own it, then you could see how you created it in that point in time. And it's no longer like a dissonance or like a perceived separation.
And then you gotta love it, right? Or is
Well, it
that
depends what it is. I mean,
Well,
everything is.
you don't gotta love it, so you could just resist the shit out of it and then keep perpetuating it if that's what you're committed to. But if you're committed to transcending it, then the recipe for that would be loving it. And there's this like this nugget that you had in there about the present of the present of the present, like these things that are in the awareness that are programs, that are thoughts that come from other people or the school or social media, that are literally programs. These things are usually in the past, like all right, so was I just in school yesterday? No, that was like years ago. And so this program is from like years ago. And so it's in the past. But if it's a strong program, it's a neural pathway in the brain also, but it's also energetic. And so then because of that, we continue to have it show up in the present until we love it and transcend it. And the really thing that you really spoke to is being present. Like when we're present, the thoughts, when we're actually mostly present, the majority of our thoughts are gone. Like they literally aren't there. And what is there is what? The observer. The thing observing without needing to have a story, without needing to put a label. And so that piece was relevant, and I picked that up from your share.
Uh, the thing about that is that it tends to alienate beings or individuals who are split in ways, or not integrated in ways where they can't bring the whole of themselves to the present, because some part of them is, like, I was trying to speak to both sides, is stuck somewhere, that um there's a way to tie all of this in, and
How is the alienation relevant? Because I don't entirely see that piece. Like I kind of see maybe where you're going with it, but
yeah,
I'm curious on, like, yeah, I get it, but I get how when a person has a program from the past, they may, you could say that they have the perception of being separate from the one, and that could be seen as alienation. Is that what you're speaking to, or is there like another way that you're looking at it?
I think it's a part of yourself that is stuck in the past in some event that's not able to be present here now because of it, right? Is that what
yeah,
you're
it's
speaking to?
it's closer to that than really anything else. And I'm just seeing that, like, the primal energies that I was speaking to earlier, a lot of times there's like uh they undercut the true self. They actually, you get stuck in the body, in the corporeal sort of body, and the movement of those energies, like whatever aspects of yourself that are stuck or dislocated in uh wherever it may be, they, like, it's the disconnect between those levels that, it's very hard to speak to without a visualization, because
Well,
I have a visual in my
okay,
head when I'm
so
speaking.
can you give an example of a visual that like a 1-year-old could, or maybe a 3-year-old could see and
No,
kind of get
it's
what?
you know how we're multi-dimensional beings with all the, so it's like it involves all those dimensions and all those, it's multifaceted.
Complicated, all right?
It's
You wouldn't get it.
no, you'd get it. You'd no, I think you'd get it. But not a 2 year. Wait, what'd you say? Like how old?
Yeah, a 2 or a 3-year-old.
No.
Soul, if Soul's running
Oh
around,
yeah,
you could
so
just fucking show him.
yes. Right. Well, no,
Because we're like on that level, right? We're not on your level.
no, I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying that you are on a higher level than a 3-year-old, and it requires that level to be able to, like, discern. So the truth is not complicated. The truth is simple. We're all one. Everything, love is all there is. And that's
Everything's perfect.
yeah. So that's all true. However, when the complications, it gets complicated when and a being develops complications, so
Yes,
complexes. So there's like literally egoic or whatever, like complexes, literally
yes.
complexes. So it's ways which you've internalized whatever false perspectives or illusions or lies, that you identify and dissociate your true self from. Whatever part of yourself you make the decision, or you adopt the subconscious belief that it's not safe to be present. It's not safe to be present in this moment, because that will lead to some sort of damaging consequence or death, or whatever it is.
And usually that feeling or thought comes from real life experience of traumatic event,
Yes.
or like waking up spiritually, which can be traumatic when we don't know how to navigate it.
Yes.
It's like we have this awareness, like, wow, I'm like more than this body, and like we question, like, why am I even going to like my job tomorrow? And like, but
Valid.
when that's all when that's all you've known, that's like, that's really a traumatic, it can be a super traumatic experience that we then disassociate from the present moment. And and so this is relevant. Yes,
And
please.
then I feel like I'm struggling with that because the people that I used to be close with back are now, I feel like, judging me based on their own programming. But I feel like I've navigated this on my own, and it's like something totally new for me. And but the relationships I had in the past of people that haven't gone through that, it's just like, especially when it's your family, it's like I don't know, it's even harder for me, you know, and that's like I've experienced trauma through that and just trying to navigate that as well. So I'm just speaking of my own experience, but um yeah, I don't know really know where I was going with that, but I felt like that was important for me to say.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
completely relevant.
Yeah.
It's so in what you just shared, like it's then so we have this. I think like part of life is traumatic experience. Like I think it's part of growth. I think it's part of how we expand. And I don't Neal fucking hates saying that. Neal just wants life
I
to
do
be
too.
fucking easeful and nice and this like in here in natural balance virtual masterclass and in physical interactions, we have an opportunity to practice cooperation and balance inside of ourselves and fill ourselves up with so much cooperation that we literally overflow it. That then when we get poked, what comes out is cooperation. Like, oh, wow, like I'm so full of cooperation, it's just pouring out of me. And this is possible by being mostly present, and it's by loving those traumatic experiences and recognizing that who we were then and who we perceived ourselves to be was exactly that, a perception. It's not who I am, it's just like a perception of who I thought I was. Yes.
And I feel like the journey for me is like when I get poked, like I don't think cooperation's gonna come out. And I feel like that's like
What's gonna come out?
I don't know, just like
What do you
fucking
think?
just just anger and resentment and like judgment. And I feel like that's just where I'm at right now. And I don't know, I don't feel like I should try to, I feel like it would be more of like an ideal self if I was
Yes.
trying to be
Yes.
cooperative. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like, but I feel like I shouldn't have judgment on me, on my real self, you know, because that's just my real self coming out after years of me fucking living in my ideal self and packing, stacking all this shit that now I'm starting to confront. And then when I do get poked, that shit start to come out, and it's fucking years and years of it. And it's something I don't enjoy doing, but it's in there. So it's gonna come out, I feel like. So I feel like I gotta honor that part of where I'm at and what in the journey I'm on.
Have you always honored this part of yourself, like this anger, like
Oh,
and what has it been like inside of you when you haven't honored that?
it's just been me stewing in my own shit, and it's just
Like what's that look like? And what's it
me shutting off, going and isolating myself, um, just like just stuffing it down and just like not reacting, but also really not having any like healthy outlet because I spent a lot of time doing drugs and alcohol where I spent like that's how I felt good and I felt really really good, but all that other shit was just stuffed down. I thought I was just expressing it or like um sorting my way through it, but I was really just stacking on top of it and tricking myself into thinking that I'm fine through that. So,
and
and
then
then now that I'm like going down a different path, all that shit's now starting to come up, and I'm having to work through it in a more functional and just like sober way. And it's just yeah, it's just one of the
and now you spoke too about how like it's like you're not really judging yourself when you get poked and like the anger comes out, like how what is it like now inside of you, like being more easeful with yourself, being more loving with yourself, like what's that
well,
like?
yeah, I feel like I still have some judgment on myself, especially when I feel like when somebody pokes me or something happens, I feel like I can't take it out on that person specifically. And I feel like I still like push it down because I'm afraid of like what will happen, like if I actually did, like if I actually hurt another person. That's what that's why I'm like I don't know the best way to express those feelings without like injuring or harming somebody else.
Is that how you've done it in the past?
Yeah, yeah.
And so now, present day, when you get poked and anger comes out, now what happens? Because of like this, and and there's this thing of like, all right, I can get poked, and then if I'm filled with cooperation, like I just overflow cooperation. Like I get poked, but rather than like feeling the poke, I just like receive it, and I notice that it's like not even someone else poking me. I notice that I'm poking myself, and I can alchemize that and love it and cooperate with what's coming at me, and I can respond to that. And and then in addition, there's now this is like another scenario, getting poked and then like resisting the poke, like being like, wow, having the illusion of separation, like resisting it, and then getting angry at the poke. And so with that, when you get poked, do you notice currently, are you resisting getting poked? And then if so, what are how are you resisting, and then what are you doing with that?
When it happens, I'm like internalizing it and then just feeling it. But then like later on, I'll like think about it and like get really like emotional. Whatever that emotion is, I'll feel that like fully. And I'll just get angry because I didn't do anything about it. I just kind of it happened and then nothing, you know.
So you'll like relocate and then process. Is it
Yes,
all right? Thank you.
you're welcome.
Welcome, Andrea. Uh, how this is works, like if you want to share, you can raise your hand. You can literally unmute, interrupt, share. This is informal in the sense that we're all one, we're all connected. So if something's relevant and wants to be expressed, express it. And you feel free to raise your hand. Feel free to unmute and share. Uh, Welcome.
Thank you. I'll just get present with you all with audio on. Is it coherent? I have something playing in the background.
Yes, super clear.
Okay, I'm here. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I felt a call to distinguish different levels of
Okay.
trauma.
Okay, you got 4 minutes for that.
Oh yeah, okay. So most of what you've been speaking to, like the programming and all that stuff, it's rather just the ego and what you've been conditioned to expect, what you've been conditioned to do. And for example, the example you gave of somebody who's like going to work every day and then they have some sort of experience where they realize they're more than just this body, they're more than just, and then they're like, well, why am I even going to work? Like that example. um I would say that's like mental trauma. Let's call it that. But the trauma that's really problematic is the deeper level trauma, where literally aspects of your true self or your soul uh, become trapped in some alternate reality where it's completely separate. Again, it is like this is where it goes from illusion to delusion. Like the ego is all illusion. Delusion is when the truth is essentially the actual truth in relation to your true self is uh, um, perverted, perversely related to, and like it becomes like a fantasy instead of like your true self being contained inside of reality. Some aspect of your true self um, is yeah, fractured and then kind of lost in space and time. And that's kind of that's the level of trauma that requires more than just like a change in perspective. It doesn't, and that's why I was saying, speaking to the alienation.
Because the true self is beyond perspective.
It is, yeah.
So yeah, please.
Yes, the true self is beyond perspective, and so trying to just look at it through a different lens isn't going to alter what's behind that lens necessarily. You actually have to re-experience and go back to whatever points in time. Like that's like the regression process, for example. Like, and you have to see the truth of it, that you fill in from whatever other parts that you're actually present with. So the parts of you that are present, you essentially rebind that lost part, and you're able to, make it present.
Rebind, remember.
Remember, exactly. Remember. And also, that's what breaks cooperation a lot of times, because as we're all members of Christ, or the body of Christ, and the same, it's like our different organs and different systems in the body. Like if you, Neal, are my mirror in whatever way, like an opposite, you're the opposite to me, or you could be supplementary, you could be adjacent, you could be 90 degrees, whatever kind of mirror you are. If I don't see myself, or that part of me, that's the side from which the aspect of myself that was unsafe or disconnected or got shut down, like that's the part of me that I won't be able to cooperate with you until I actually remember that part of myself, so that I can relate to you and allow the energy to flow within me, and in an interpersonally.
Time.
Yeah. Great.
Andrea, welcome. You had your hand up, or you still got your hand up?
It came through him. He started using, I was gonna request to, I do not still have my hand up. I'm
Well, you're sharing. Do you want to continue sharing, or are you complete right now?
I will continue sharing, and I have a question for you, David. Are you open to it? Are you in awareness? And of course, if this is not accurate, I'm open to hear that from you other two, that we are in the awareness that you're speaking of. Are you aware that we're aware of those things that you're pointing to?
I don't know. I mean, I no. So
Are
I guess the
we-
answer is no.
Are we in awareness of what he's speaking to?
Yes, I am receiving what he's sharing.
What about you? Wait, is it Colton?
Cool. Yeah, it's
Cole,
I know what he's speaking to, yeah.
okay. And so are you open to trying on a new expression
Sure.
of using I statements? You got there at the end. And so I just want to bring awareness and attention to that was a huge breakthrough.
I'm not sure exactly what you're pointing to, but if you can bring my awareness to it and point to it and bring it to my attention, and yeah, I'd be glad to.
In 2 minutes.
Okay. It's 6:20. So if you're us being in awareness that we were all aware of what was being spoken to, then speaking from and I feel this way about that is something that can be an adjunct in getting quicker to what you're pointing to for self. So when I'm open, see, I'm actually mirroring to you what happened, because I practice not speaking that way. So part of me, I'm going to just backtrack. I see your ego being free and safe to be. And so articulating in a way, who I am is pointing to that in me. And when I come from that space and be present to that, I'm believing that that's an order of balancing. And so I'm offering that way of speaking to you in expression, to say, I believe this, I believe that, and coming from that place.
I see. Okay, so yeah, the place that I was coming from was impersonal.
Pause. We just entered a new space, so we've been in flow the entire conversation. this new space, we literally have 8 minutes. Sometimes we have 15 minutes for this time. We've just right now entered a structured time. Um, Natural balance is part of this virtual masterclass is an opportunity to both give and receive offers. So who here is prepared to share an offer tonight? With a raise of hands. Nice.
An offer for like
This is any offer. This
Any
is
offer?
something that's coming from your heart. This is coming from being whole and complete. This is your gift. This is a way that somebody can receive your gift and actually contribute to you, Cole, from an offer that you express. So that's what this space is now for. So you just feel into that.
so
And I'm gonna go first. You just feel into it. Feel into your offer. I think you got one based on it. It seems like you got some kind of an indicator of energy inside of you, like, ooh, I got an offer. But so just be with that. And I'm offering the up level ceremony, and this is specifically for plateaued healers and event facilitators that want to go to the next level. Like you're ready to level up. And this event, the dates of this event are the start is December 27th, 2024, and the end date is January 2nd, 2025. The minimum donation to attend the up level ceremony is $333. And now you can donate more because you literally get out what you put in. And when you donate more, this donation is specifically being used to express natural balance to the world through virtually and physically. And this up level ceremony is a 7-day event. And in the first 5 days of this event, it's a food fast. So we're not eating food during this event for 5 days. And there's 6 hours of meditation per day during these 5 days of being in a fasted state. And this meditation is in 2-hour windows with light body movements in between the meditations that assist with meditation, and it's just nice to move the body from being in a seated position. And then after these 5 days of being in a fasted space, we end the fast with fresh fruits and fresh vegetables that are organic. They're alive. They literally have light in the food, like papayas and mangoes and watermelon and the location is on Earthquake and Grace 2 property in rural Costa Rica. And all this information I'm going to put in the chat. If you want to attend this event, just send me a donation. And then after the donation, email me the words up level ceremony, and then you'll receive any additional information through that. So you're invited, and that's complete. Go ahead with your offer, and then I got another one as well.
Well, I was just saying for my offer, I don't have it quite yet, but it is in the making. I will be offering a masterclass soon. So I just want to put that out there, but it's probably going to come through tomorrow during the Infinite Abundance event. So that's what I'm planning on. So I'll probably have that ready for next week at this class to be revealed. So if you're watching this, watch the one next week, either live or I think this is posted on YouTube to get more information on that.
Very nice. Offer? Andrea, offer?
Yes, it in the same essence coming through Cole. I'm birthing that, and so I'm offering that I am in abundance and blessings and whatever comes through and the organic of you all's offering and mine and others to be superseded. And that's my offer in this moment now. And so it is.
Amazing. In addition, Natural Balance Virtual Masterclass, that's happening every Wednesday at 5:30 Central Standard Time. And Natural Balance Virtual Masterclass is an opportunity to show up and practice nurturing balance and cooperation inside of yourself till you're literally so filled up that it literally overflows out of you into the world around you, which is all actually inside of you. And you is actually just a construct that only exists in language. And so this is an opportunity to show up at 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time every Wednesday to connect, to network, as well as to give and receive offers, which is what we're expressing right now. And with that, we have 2 minutes left. Is there anything alive that would like to be expressed right now?
This appreciation of the energy that just flowed through and the expansiveness of it and gratitude.
And with that, thank you for being here. I love you. I honor you. Your time is infinitely valuable. There's no monetary value you can put on your attention. Where you put your attention is where your energy flows, and where your energy flows is what expands and generates and actually matters. And with that, peace.
Neal, we speak to the shadows. Send it to the shadows and say you're welcome.